it is an honor and a privilege for me to be able to speak in this debate, to be able to bring, I think, to this august house a really serious subject for discussion. The DA in the Western Cape and the Western Cape government has consistently espoused the principle of federalism and called for the devolution of power to provinces. Not only because this is the best form of governance in principle, but also because it brings government closer to the people. It promotes better accountability, specifically all the way down to local level. In the context of South Africa today, devolution of power will ensure that we do not become a failed state. While we have long talked about the importance of devolution in South Africa, the time has come for us to take action and implement it now. Failure to do so, Chairperson, will have grave consequences. I say to members of this House, I recommend this book, Fixing Failed States. I say to us in this House that while in South Africa we might not now be a failed state, we are moving towards a failed state. And we need to arrest that now. We need to change that now. That is why the Western Cape stands ready to take up devolved responsibilities so that we can get the job done. Chairperson, I've just said that while we are not a failed state, we are failing. And I don't want to spend too much time making politics here today. I want to bring this very, very serious discussion to this House because I want to say, Chairperson, this House represents all of our provinces in South Africa, and this House has the power to bring about change, to push back on budgets, to really make a change in the best interests of the citizens of our province. You know, while talking about federal power, I'm going to use, first of all, before I talk about the South African Police Services, I'm going to talk about another competency. I'm going to talk about PRASA and rail in our municipalities. And specifically in this very city where we find ourselves at this, the seat of Parliament, the seat of this National Council of Provinces. If you live anywhere around the central line, Mr. Chair, you have not got a very good story to tell. That competency by PRASA has failed the citizens of our country. It has failed the citizens of our province, and it has failed the citizens of this city of Cape Town. And who are those citizens? They are the poorest of the poor. They are the ones that actually need government to be there for them. How do they get to school, to a hospital, to a job? That central line is an absolute failure. I'm not sure when any of these standing committees have been there last to go and have a look at what it looks like in the central line or on the central line. There are now people living, they're using the railway lines as the foundations for their homes. Those trains have not got a chance of even running, even if there was a will to fix it. But that's why we are saying these vulnerable people deserve much better. And I'm saying to this House should be making statements on that. This House should be calling for a change in management because it has failed the citizens of Langa. It's failed the citizens of Mitchell's Plain. It has failed the citizens of Khayelitsha.
Honorable Chair, on a point of order.
Honorable Memang, on what point are you rising?
I'm rising on a point of order in terms of Rule 36, Honorable Chair. The matters around PRASA, around transport, it's not the subject matter on the table. So I'm afraid that the Honorable Speaker on the podium is not relevant to the topic that the Chair has outlined, that it is the subject matter of today's debate. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
It's not really a point of order. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Chair. I hope I'm not losing time because of these frivolous points of order. But the object was to show that it's a failed state and it affects the citizens of our various provinces. And this doesn't only happen in the Western Cape, this happens in other provinces too. And we represent those very citizens, and specifically the poorest of the poor. We all represent them, every single one of us in our various different political parties. And we need to stand up for them. And so, Speaker, so Chair, I need to move on to talking about where we really have failed our citizens, and that is in keeping them safe. Policing. Are our citizens safe in South Africa? They are not. In the Standing Committee at the National Assembly, the Commissioner of Police says we can no longer keep our citizens safe. When that is said, one must get really, really worried. And I'm coming to this House, I'm coming to this debate to say, I believe there's a solution. And I really want us to take this very, very seriously, Chairperson. Policing is not working at the moment with a centralization under a single control coming out of Tshwane, coming out of Pretoria. We are not managing it properly. We need to change. You know, they say if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and you're not finding change, that's just a sign of madness. And if our citizens are not getting safer and we are doing the same thing over and over again, we need to make a change. And we, I say we, every single one of us, we as members of legislatures, of parliament, of the NCOP, we owe it to those citizens to bring about that change, to push for that change. And, Chairperson, right here today, that is why this debate is of utmost importance. I know you said that we are going to be breaking now because there's an election coming up. But please do not use that break while we're fighting an election and not in our committees and not in sitting in this House to waste a moment of not thinking about how we are going to change the way that we make our citizens safer in our province. What I'm saying here, I'm speaking on behalf of those people in Mitchell's Plain, in Khayelitsha. These are the people who suffer the brunt, and we cannot allow this to happen. At the moment, what is happening when the announcement comes, when Minister Becky Clele, who's going to be speaking after me, says, I'm very sorry, we got less budget to fight crime in this country. Have we stood up in this House, stood together in this House and said, we do not accept that? We need more budget for policing. We need to cut elsewhere. Let's make sure we make people safe in our province. It is critical. Chairperson, that is why the Western Cape stands ready to take up these devolved responsibilities so that we can get the job done. And I'm pretty certain that there are other MECs and premiers in other provinces that are saying, devolve power to them too. Let us work together in a different way in order to get this job done. We have put together a safety plan in this province in the meantime, while we are waiting. But Chairperson, before I get to that safety plan and talking about that safety plan, I want to give you just an idea of how a devolved system of policing could work. Let's think about COVID-19 and the response of COVID-19, and I can only talk about my province, but how we responded to make sure we're keeping our citizens safe, make sure we're keeping them healthy, making sure we're protecting them and protecting our healthcare system so we don't end up in hospital, and saving as many lives as possible. We held that responsibility here as a province, but we work with national. I'm not saying that we want to be the sole. I'm saying we need to work with national government, provincial government, and local government together in finding a solution. But the way the health system works is we take that responsibility as a province because we are closer to the people. We work with our municipalities because they are even closer to the people. And we work with them in the best interest of making sure we get through this pandemic as safely as possible. Why can we not do exactly the same thing with policing? Why can we not devolve certain management principles and power around policing down to provincial level and to local government level? So let me talk about the safety plan, and of course, also on this speaker's list, MEC Fritz, Minister Fritz in our province will also be talking about it, as of course it's his responsibility. He owns this safety plan, or a compartment of it. Because the safety plan is not only about boots and policing, the safety plan is also about getting to the why. Violence prevention. How are we making it safer? We must prevent violence from happening. We've got to get into those young boys before they get into the gangs and make sure we've got systems and mechanisms to identify them and get them into Project Chrysalis, or get them into programs that get them back on track so that they can lead a positive role in society into the future. We're identifying those first 1,000 days of a child's life. We're using this through data and science and measuring, and then we take that data, we understand where those hotspots are, and we deploy. Whether it's a social worker, whether it's an intervention of violence prevention through our health system, or whether it is boots on the ground, because part of our safety plan is we've started to put boots on the ground. We've identified which are the 10 hotspot, murder capital hotspots in the city of Cape Town. They all are at the moment. Luckily, not other municipalities, but wherever there's a hotspot, we identify it, we use the data management systems, and then we deploy. Not alone, we deploy with South African police services. And already we've seen, if I look back in 2016-17 in Bishop Lavis, a 24% decrease in murders. In 2021, a further 49% decrease in murders, 2018 to 2021. This cannot be attributed to only the LEAP operations, but it is how we work together in a different way, trying to find a better solution. Because why are we doing it? Our citizens need to be safer. They are not safe at the moment. If you live in one of those 10 hotspot areas, if you live in Philippi right now, you live in fear. If you live in Bishop Lavis, you live in fear. Gangs, murders, rape. You cannot believe it, the GBV that happens. We speak about GBV all the time. How are we measuring it? And how are we intervening to bring about change? We need to do something different. We cannot carry on doing exactly the same thing year after year and expect it to just get safer. It is not going to get safer. So, Chair, I am here not to make politics. I am here in this very house to say to the National Council of Provinces, to say, let's apply our minds. Let's talk also to our colleagues at the National Assembly. Let's use the power that we are given by the voters in this very house to talk about those budgets, but also to talk about how the systems work. Let's change that system. It is not working at the moment. Let's devolve the power. Let's change it in a way that makes it safe. We will continue with our safety plan. We will continue measuring and monitoring and trying to work as best as we can with all spheres of government, pulling it together. We've already deployed 800 what we call LEAP officers alongside the city of Cape Town. And the interesting thing is that when I go on a walkabout with those LEAP officers and I meet the station commanders from the South African police services, those station commanders say to me, if they don't come from one of the hotspots where they've got allocation of officers, they say to me, we are so jealous of those places because we want those extra resources. Minister, you know that the resource deployment in this province in 2018 actually, we were sitting at over 20,000 officers deployed. Here we are in 2021, 19,000 officers deployed, just over. We have less officers today than we had then. We've got more people and higher crime levels. This cannot be the case. We have to do something differently. We have to challenge this, take on this big challenge differently. We've got to think about it. And that's the pleading that I'm making here today. I've got a solution, Minister. I know what I'm asking for is actually a change in the Constitution, and I know that takes long, and it's a long process. I don't say that we must stop. Let's start that process. But in the meantime, I've got a challenge. Why don't we try it? Why don't we try something a little bit different? Minister Becky Cleller, I'm challenging you to say, why don't we work together in a different way? Why don't you, number one, give us in the province a bit more management and decision-making powers? Why don't you let us chair and run the Prof job? I promise you I will do it alongside SAPS, but we will take that responsibility. We will run the provincial JOC. I'll run it alongside General Patekile. I want to say to you, thank you very much to General Patekile. We work very well together, but give me the power alongside him to do even more when it comes to those decision-making. Give us the decision-making around how the budgets for the Western Cape are going to be managed, and give us the decision-making powers on how deployment takes place, so that we can decide how many police officers we deploy to Philippi. We can decide how many police officers we deploy to those hotspot stations, and we'll do that alongside our own deployment of LEAP officers. We'll do that alongside our municipalities' law enforcement officers. We'll do that alongside the CPFs, and we'll do it alongside the neighborhood watchers, the volunteers from citizens. We'll do all of that together. Why don't you give us the opportunity to try that as a lead up to changing our system of management of police in our country? Minister, I think if we tried that, and I can assure you that we will do it together with all three spheres of government. And Minister, I will also say to you that if it succeeds—
As you conclude, Honourable Member.
I will do, Chair. If it succeeds, you can have all of the kudos. I will say it was your idea. If it fails, you can blame me, absolutely. Thank you very much.